Okay, folks, we had a viewer requested rant, I believe from Chris G, CG. I believe that was Chris's request up in New York and parts of Maine. Chris wanted to know my thoughts on Ryback, and I do have thoughts on Ryback, and I did do some research on this, not a whole lot because I'm pretty familiar with Ryback already. For those that don't know, this is going to be a pro wrestling discussion, a character discussion. I'm not going to provide clips. Those clips are readily available online. I'm just going to provide my thoughts, my opinion. Overall, Chris, and for those that are interested, I do like Ryback. And I probably, similar to the Ultimate Warrior, believe it or not, I like Ryback more as a personality outside the ring than as a person or a competitor in the ring, and I'll explain. And I will probably have a few references or allusions to the Ultimate Warrior. I even tweeted that to Ryback once, comparing the two guys, and Warrior Ryback in typical Ryback fashion, which probably would have been something Warrior would have done as well, was kind of not flattered so much, like a tinge annoyed, but just kind of, I think Ryback's response when I compared him to the Ultimate Warrior videos was something to the effect of, that's cool, that guy had his life, I have mine, I don't copy anybody, or something to that effect. But I think for me, as you've probably gathered by now, Chris and everyone, I'm kind of, is the word attracted to, or amused by, or entertained, or intrigued with pro wrestlers that kind of march to the beat of their own drummer. Guys, not that everybody has to be Bruiser Brody or, in some regard, a CM Punk is a more modern term, but those wrestlers that don't play by the company rule book all the time and do their own thing. And I just think that that's kind of the maverick spirit of professional wrestling that was once commonplace. Now, these days, when so many wrestlers, even on their way out the door, as we've experienced with this, what's his name, Tommy D or Aleister Black, they always seem to feel the need to compliment Vince McMahon and compliment the machine of the WWE. Well, I kind of go the other way, obviously, with my rants and with the wrestlers that I find interesting. They do their own thing, they have their own opinions, and they're not necessarily concerned with making Vince, Stephanie, Triple H, and all those fine folks in Titan Tower happy all the time. A guy like Nick Aldis, who another viewer, Tom enjoyed in the group. So, or Mark with a C, I should say. I get names confused, guys. I have a little bit of an issue with that, so please don't take offense. My thoughts on Ryback. First of all, we'll talk about his in-ring stuff. I believe he was part of that 2004. Wow, time flies, doesn't it? Was it really that far ago? Was he in the 2004 Tough Enough thing, or was he more recent? I think he was in a more recent Tough Enough, because that would really throw my timeline off. But it might have been going back to 2004, like the SmackDown only Tough Enough, because I believe Ryback, or Ryan Reeves at the time, interacted with my friend Brian. Brian, the toughest man on Tough Enough. I think they were part of the same class along with The Miz. I could be wrong. I could be getting Wrestling Seattle and getting memories mixed up. But I believe that was Ryan Reeves at the time. I believe you see Ryan, or Ryback as he'd become to be known, in that infamous thing with Daniel Puder and Kurt Angle. Am I really just slaughtering these memories? Am I like memory merging or not? I don't know. But in any event, it wasn't until several years later we'd see Ryback kind of come up in the game, and that's why I'm questioning my own memories. You're catching it live on Mike gets old, like Mike starts to lose his wrestling mind. But maybe I'm not, I don't know. But it just seems like a long time. If Ryback was part of that 2004 thing, that it wasn't until 2013 we started seeing him emerge kind of on WWE television. I watched his first match from SmackDown last night. Lillian Garcia It's an old match, obviously, but I just watched it again last night. Lillian Garcia is announcing a job guy. The job guy actually does some mic work. And then Ryback comes out. He has his same music. He doesn't have that Feed Me More thing yet. And he proceeds to squash the guy. And then the videos on YouTube were kind of just instantly playing a few more early Ryback matches. And I guess one of his first losses on TV was apparently losing to Big Show. Although they did say that the big guy, Ryback, had an undefeated streak, which was eventually beaten by CM Punk. He was beaten by CM Punk in a cage. And a pay-per-view match. And I think that's when the company, as we say, the WWE, was having just a kind of a lot of guys were just not around. Like there was no Cena, there obviously no Austin, I guess no Dave Batista, no Edge. So you had a real lull of main event type of guys, and there was only so much they could do with CM Punk, and Daniel Bryan hadn't really been elevated yet, and so they were using guys like Ryback, you know, who I think the initial appeal to Ryback was that he was a throwback. He was a throwback to Goldberg. He was a throwback to Lesnar. Remember, this was in the non-Lesnar years that Ryback was around, but people immediately, fans started chanting Goldberg at Ryback because he felt like a feedback, not a feedback, a throwback. And I think people were just kind of in the mood, like, we've seen all these kind of 230-pound guys. Let's see someone with some meat on his bones who really looks like a wrestler. And I think Ryback at that time was old school. You know, everything old is new again, and Ryback fit into that. You know, and not to be mean to Ryback, but the character he was portraying on TV felt like the big dumb jock, you know, and that was kind of his appeal, the big dumb jock. Now here's where things went askew. Apparently, you know, as it's been discussed many times by the parties involved, CM Punk and Ryback did not get along well in the ring. There were some injuries. According to CM Punk, most of those injuries were at the fault of Ryback towards CM Punk. I don't have it memorized what exactly got hurt. But Punk, who was not in a good mood anyway, starts getting injured or roughed up in these matches with Ryback. And that probably hurt Ryback's credibility or standing in the company when you've got essentially the top guy doesn't like working with you and is not afraid to express himself. You know, oddly enough, both of these guys, CM Punk and Ryback, are two guys that like to speak their mind, but here they were speaking their mind kind of at odds with each other. We move forward, and as we all know the story of Ryback and WWE, like a lot of these guys, they start off strong. They seem like they can move a lot of t-shirts, some action figures. They could have done some stuff with the Feed Me More as far as selling, you know, Ryback burgers or something. But it never happened. And it just, like typical WWE, if you're not one of their chosen guys, you're just going to be limited. And Ryback was not one of their chosen guys for whatever reason. And he was limited. And eventually teamed up with, you know, Joe Hennig or Curtis Axel. They had a fairly moderately successful tag team. I could be wrong, but didn't Ryback get like a U.S. title run or something like that? But I mean, he was there. He was on TV. But it was obvious for whatever reason that the WWE decision makers lost their faith in Ryback, lost their interest in promoting him further. He leaves the company. He basically, from what I understand, I hope I'm not getting the things wrong here, but he gets his own name. He changes his name legally, first name Ryback, I guess last name Reeves at this point, I could be wrong. And now he, like Ultimate Warrior, once again, kind of copyrights or gets that name with some paperwork behind it so he can use the name Ryback. And I think he's still using Feed Me More because he's doing Feed Me More Nutrition. All of that, I said, was to get to these points. What do I okay, as far as his in-ring ability, his wrestling matches, he was a muscle guy. He was a strength guy. He was a power guy. Or, you know, if you go back to Ted Arcidi, if you go back to Bill Kazmaier, some of those guys from the 80s and 90s, just muscle guys. And there's really nothing wrong with that. I think there was an interesting match at one of the WrestleManias. didn't Mark Henry beat Ryback, or Ryback beat Mark Henry? Like those had some interesting matches. It kind of felt like 50-50 booking. But I was never opposed to Ryback in the ring, but I was never a huge Ryback guy in the ring either. It just similarly to how I felt about Ultimate Warrior. I mean, there are some power guys, some strength guys that I mark out for, that I get behind, namely the Road Warriors or the Steiners, where there's some maybe it's a tag team thing. I just prefer power wrestlers to be tag team guys, and guys like a Ricky Steamboat who can wrestle a full match to be singles guys. Maybe that's it for me. Maybe that's the answer. Because I think with power moves, you can do so much more in a tag team. Here's an interesting side story, a side trail, if you would. That tag teams for power wrestlers are inherently more interesting than singles power guys. But going back to Ryback, now he's outside of WWE. I don't want to speak for him. I don't want to misquote his life. But the way that I interpreted it, he had some health concerns, some health issues, fluctuations in weight, some things he was concerned about. But he started doing some podcasting and some, wrestling YouTube videos. And he's kind of gathered a reputation as having, similar to Ultimate Warrior, a loyal, not that his political views are similar, they're probably quite different, but Ryback had a loyal fan following, guys that are really behind Ryback, and people that really don't like him. And it seems like very few people are in between. My buddy Joe Cronin, for whatever reason, there's some type of heat with him and Ryback. I don't quite get it, if that's legitimate or a come on or a joke. But I go the other way. I typically like Ryback. I think sometimes he says things that he's kind of thinking out loud and people misconstrue him or misinterpret him, sometimes on purpose. There was a good example several years ago. Ryback said something on one of his podcasts or videos that, hey, in WWE, if wins and losses don't matter and titles don't matter, how come all the guys aren't paid the same amount of money? And suddenly that got twisted and warped into Ryback says all WWE wrestlers should get paid the same. It's not what he said, not at all. He was just kind of expostulating, if that's the word, out loud. If the WWE is not going to make a big deal about championships or wins and losses and all this 50-50 booking, why not just pay everybody the same? If it's like a dinner theater ensemble and everybody's doing the same amount of work, why not just pay everyone the same? So he was making a point, thinking out loud, and people like Jim Cornette took him out of context and kind of warped what he said. And I see my value system, folks, believe it or not, is always to the truth. It doesn't matter who said what, whose side I'm on, who I like more. Yes, we all have, as I've discussed, our convenient morality and our slants, and we always give people that we like more credence or leeway. In this situation, and I do like Cornette's rants, but Cornette was wrong. That's not what Ryback was saying, that all the wrestlers should get paid the same. He was thinking out loud, if you're not going to use championships and wins and losses to mean anything, why aren't the wrestlers being paid the same? It's an interesting point. And of course, people try to manipulate that and make Ryback look foolish, which is not fair. Which someone like me, that gives me more sympathy towards Ryback. Ryback started doing some of these, in a sense, I'm not going to give him too much or too little credit, but part of the potpourri of the influences of Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel, and thanks to the 769 subscribers and growing, really, I do appreciate it, believe it or not. But some of Ryback's silly stuff of like Ryback doing a chicken sandwich test, like in the middle of all that hubbub about, the Popeyes fried chicken sandwich versus the KFC fried chicken sandwich, Ryback's just sitting in his car eating a couple of chicken sandwiches, and somehow it's morbidly interesting. Like, that's inspiring, a direct inspiration to me to sit in my car and do Mike's Meals. So how could I not give credit to that? That's inspiring, because if you're a good talker, if you have an interesting take and don't suck, as Jim Rome used to say, you can make anything a prop or a gimmick or a subject matter. And a lot of times people are just looking to get through the day. And for me, if it's listening to a Conrad Thompson podcast or I'm listening to, believe it or not, Matthew McConaughey's book on tape right now. If you have some type of friendly voice that's saying something somewhat interesting, it can get you through some tough times. And maybe that's what my videos do for people, and I hope that they do. I hope that you feel like you're hanging out with your buddy. I'm doing my thing, you're doing your thing, and you get a little peek into my world and you see what's going on, and it's probably not much different from yours, or maybe it is, who knows. But I enjoyed Ryback's videos. Now we get into some of the weeds with Ryback, with the nutritional stuff and the supplements. I've gone around the ringer with stuff. I take about 9 vitamins and supplements a day, and I don't know what the fuck I'm taking anymore. I just take stuff and I hope that something's working, and maybe it is, maybe it's not. So I take fish oil, I take beta-carotene, I take lysine. I take a vitamin D supplement, even though I get a lot of sun here, so I don't take the D supplement all the time. I can't speak on the quality or the value of Ryback's nutritional products. I really just don't know the answer to that. I know that, I'm sure that there's value. I'm not sure of anything. I'm not going to speak. I haven't tried them. I don't know. I haven't gotten a discount promo code from Ryback. I don't know how good his products are. I respect the fact that if he's taking his own supplements, then it works for him, and he's trying to share that and make a profit and make a living. And anyone these days who makes a living in a non-traditional sense, a non-9 to 5, these WWE talents could take some lessons from Ryback. He's been doing this for 3 or 4 years now, 5 years, where he's been on his own, away from the WWE machine, and doing his thing. So I think you don't have to respect it, but I do. I was trying to think of anything else that Ryback's been involved with controversy. Just seems like he did a recent poll where he was asking people if he should return to wrestling, where he should return, or if he should retire. Then he said, "Don't vote for me to retire." So people said, "Well, why'd you give it as an option if you, So, look, Ryback is. We're all, you know what I mean. We all can leave ourselves open to that. So I'm not gonna. He left himself open and he took some shots, you know what I mean? But when you do a lot of videos, like Ryback does, like I do, like a lot of people do, Vince Russo does, you're opening yourself up to attack. And you can be, hey, people can point it out. You're a hypocrite, you're full of shit, you don't believe your hype. How come you said this when you really meant this? How come you tweeted this and then a day later, you put yourself out there, people are going to find the inconsistencies in your delivery. And at the end of the day, I just say, hey, I'm not the Pope and I'm not the president. You know what I mean? So as far as Ryback, he's not the Pope, he's not the president, he's Ryback. If you're putting all your faith in the world into a former WWE wrestler, what can I tell you? Going back to the Ultimate Warrior thing, just my theory that the reason why I'm kind of into or intrigued by some of these outsiders. Did you know that Rob Van Dam and the Ultimate Warrior were good friends? I mean, there's plenty of videos of Ultimate Warrior hanging out with RVD. And these two guys that you say, well, RVD is athletic and he's 5-star frog splash, and Ultimate Warrior was just 2 clotheslines and a kick. They're hanging out. I mean, there was a clip going back to the WWE, maybe 2011, 12, 13, where they asked CM Punk in the dressing room, hey, who was some of your favorite wrestlers? And CM Punk said, well, I'm going to mention someone that's not in favor right now, the Ultimate Warrior. So I think it's just interesting that some of these wrestlers who you might think are odd couples or strange bedfellows, RVD and Ultimate Warrior, CM Punk tipping the hat to Ultimate Warrior, and Ryback hanging out with Austin Aries. And maybe Austin Aries was an influence on Ryback, who's now, I guess for the last year, because I guess I missed a bunch of stuff, I guess Ryback's doing veganism now. I did pescatarianism for 2.5 years, which is only eating seafood, not red meat. I lost a lot of weight at that time. I gained most of that weight back. But I think I might try it now, because if you've seen on the news that there's this meat crisis. So we're always having an issue, aren't we? So Ryback might have been ahead of the game. And I think that I'll give credit to Ryback for being ahead of the game. Will you? I mean, I don't know what Chris was expecting or others were expecting with this video. I hope that the audio was okay at the beginning. There was some rain. But I'm trying to be honest and just say that if you thought I was going to come out here and pull the company line of the internet trolls and just piss all over Ryback, that's not me. You know, I make my own opinions. For the most part, I like Ryback. For research for this, I watched like his Thursday stream. It was from like May 27th, and Ryback was answering questions, and he seems to be, you know, for the people that like Ryback, he seems to be doing good stuff. And I think that, look, is he going to give you what I try to do, which is a variety, the film reviews, my own works, Messier Mantra? No, but he's being him, and I'm being me, and I do like Ryback. I respect Ryback. Like I said, I'm probably more intrigued or interested in his post-WWE career than what he did with the shackles of that company. Guys like Shane Douglas, same thing. Guys like Raven, same thing. Raven's a very interesting character to me. And a lot of these guys, maybe we'll find out, you know, was maybe Braun Strowman, maybe he'll have a book club. You know what I mean? Like, maybe we'll all be shocked by some of these WWE talent releases from yesterday, and I don't know if there's been more releases, but that's it. My thoughts on Ryback overall, I give him a B+, a B+. I think he's a cool guy. So Ryback's got my official Mike Messier. Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel, seal of approval. As far as great in-ring work, you know, I think I did kind of like that Mark Henry match at WrestleMania, but I think I will, if I ever get around to it, I have so many things to watch. I might watch that CM Punk Ryback match in the cage just because I didn't watch that on pay-per-view. There was an era before the network that I really watched 1 or 2 WWE pay-per-views a year because they were just so expensive at that point, and all my friends stopped watching wrestling, and I wasn't going to spend $50 a month to watch a WWE pay-per-view. Anyway, subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. I just watched the movie with Angelina Jolie last night. For those that wish me dead, I did a review. I need to get to the gym myself. I've been reading Nick Aldis's book. For those that are wondering, maybe I mentioned The Ultimate Warrior too much during this video, but another viewer requested I do a comparison. Johnny Z requested I watch The Dark Side of the Ring and The Ultimate Warrior A&E biography and compare. Guess what? I'm having a hard time finding them. I will get to the bottom of it. It's just that I have the cable provider I have doesn't have either one of those channels, so that's why I haven't given you the review yet, Johnny. Okay, subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. It's Thursday. Have a good weekend.